If you do any kind of business, sign contracts, or work with partners in the European Union, there's a name you absolutely have to know: eIDAS. It's basically the EU's rulebook for digital trust, and we're about to break down exactly what it is and why it's such a game changer for anyone working across borders. You know, this line right here? It's not just some fluffy mission statement. It's literally the first sentence of the eIDAS regulation, and it gets right to the heart of the problem the EU was trying to solve: a messy, fragmented digital market where you couldn't be sure who you were dealing with. It was holding everyone back. So eIDAS was created to be the fix. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the why. What was the big push for this unified market? Then, we'll get into the framework itself and its two core pillars: electronic ID and trust services. After that, we'll dive into the specific tools that make it all work, and we'll wrap up by looking at how it's all managed and what it means for the rest of the world. Okay, so just imagine trying to use your digital ID from, say, Spain to access a government service in Germany. Before eIDAS, that was a huge headache, if not impossible. See, every country had its own little digital island, creating these massive barriers that just chopped up the EU market. The whole point of eIDAS was to tear down those walls and build one single, secure foundation for everyone. And this didn't just happen overnight, not at all. It was a really deliberate, strategic process. The journey kicked off back in 2010 when they officially said, hey, this fragmentation is a real problem. That led to a political call to action a year later, and it all came together in 2014 with the eIDAS regulation, creating one set of rules for the entire bloc. So, now that we get the problem, let's look at the solution itself, the eIDAS framework. This is the EU's big answer to the digital trust issue, creating a predictable legal playground for everyone involved. Officially, eIDAS stands for Electronic Identification, Authentication, and Trust Services, but honestly, the most important word there is regulation. See, unlike a directive, a regulation isn't just a suggestion. It applies directly and exactly the same way across all EU member states. It's a single, harmonized rulebook, plain and simple. The whole thing really stands on two pillars. First, you've got electronic identification, or eID. That's all about proving who you are online. Then you have trust services. Those are the tools that make sure what you do online, like signing a contract, is legally sound. Let's start with identity. All right, let's dive into that first pillar, electronic identification. The easiest way to think about this is like a universal digital passport that works anywhere you go inside the EU. Now, the absolute foundation of this pillar is something called mutual recognition. And trust me, this is a total game changer. It means a student from Poland can use their home country's eID to sign up for a university in France, or a business owner from Sweden can use theirs to register a company in Germany. This one rule just vaporizes one of the biggest roadblocks to a truly digital Europe. But of course, not every online action is created equal, right? That's why eIDAS set up these 3 assurance levels. Something simple, like checking your library books, might only need a low level of assurance. But applying for a business grant, that's going to need substantial. And accessing super sensitive health records, well, that's going to demand a high level of confidence. This tiered system gives flexibility while making sure the security always fits the situation. Okay, so if the first pillar is all about identity, this second pillar is all about action. Trust services are the tools that make our digital transactions legally solid and secure. You can think of them as a kind of digital notary for our modern world. eIDAS lays out a very specific set of these trust services. They're really the building blocks of digital trust. We've got stuff we've all heard of, like electronic signatures, but also things like electronic seals for companies, timestamps to prove when a document existed, and website authentication to prove you're on the right site. Now, here is another super important distinction. Within these services, eIDAS created a gold standard, the Qualified Trust Service. To get this qualified status, a provider has to meet the absolute highest security standards. In return, their services get a special legal boost and are automatically considered valid across the entire EU. So, if you ever see that EU Trustmark logo, you know you're dealing with the best of the best. So let's zoom in on a few of the most important of these trust services, because this is really where the rubber meets the road in day-to-day business. Let's start with the one we all think we know, the electronic signature. At its most basic level, the official definition is actually really broad. It's just any electronic data that you use to sign something. I mean, that could be your typed name at the end of an email, a checkbox you click, or a really complex cryptographic signature. But just like with the IDs, there are levels. The basic electronic signature can't just be ignored because it's digital. Then you've got the advanced version, which adds more security and links it uniquely to the signer. But the real powerhouse, the top of the pyramid, is the qualified electronic signature. This one has the exact same legal power as a handwritten signature across all 27 EU countries. That means a contract signed this way is just as binding as one signed with a pen in any courtroom in the EU, period. Okay, here's something that trips people up all the time: the difference between a signature and a seal. It's actually really simple. People sign things, organizations seal things. A signature shows a person's consent. A seal, on the other hand, is like a company's official digital stamp, proving where a document came from and that it hasn't been messed with. A few other key services round out this whole ecosystem. You've got the electronic timestamp, which gives you undeniable proof that a piece of data existed at a specific moment in time. Super important for things like intellectual property. Then there's registered delivery, which is basically the digital version of a certified letter. And finally, website authentication, which confirms you're in a legit site and not some phishing scam. So the last piece of the puzzle is, how is this whole system kept in check? And maybe more importantly for international partners, how does it connect with the rest of the world? Well, trust isn't just a given. It has to be earned and constantly verified. The whole eIDAS framework is backed by some serious independent oversight. Every single EU country has to have a supervisory body that audits all the qualified trust service providers. This makes sure those high standards are always being met. And for anyone watching this from outside the EU, this is probably the most important slide for you. eIDAS was not built to be a walled garden. The regulation has a specific built-in way to recognize trust services from other countries as long as there's a mutual agreement in place. This is the official bridge to global cooperation and truly frictionless digital business. So when you step back, eIDAS is so much more than just a European rulebook. It's a complete blueprint for how to do digital trust. It creates a common language for identity and security that could totally streamline international business and open up new opportunities, which kind of leaves us with one big question. As our world gets more and more connected, how might a common standard like this reshape global commerce for all of us?